Hi, Ian here. I'm filming this on May 31st, which means that I officially have a master's degree in English. Yay! Now, I've mentioned this several times on this channel, but if you did not know, I analyzed Aristotle and Dante Discovered the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alire Sáenz for my master's thesis. And right when I was writing my master's thesis last autumn, the follow-up for that book was released. I decided not to include it in my master's thesis because it would have been too much data. And in this video, I will look at the aspects that I studied in my thesis and how they change, how they stay the same in Aristotle and Dante, dive into the waters of the world. So my analysis of Ari was divided into 4 parts. So it was personality, just how Ari is as a person, how he presents himself. Dante, because Dante obviously has a huge impact on Ari. Third one is love and sexuality. And then the 4th one is family. This video will include spoilers, so if you do not want any, click away. And this will be a more chill, relaxed, talking whatever comes to my mind way, because I don't want to write another thesis unless I'm paid. PhD? Who knows? But yeah, let's get into it. I want to start by sharing my opinion on the book. At first, I was a bit worried because I did not feel the same magic I felt when I read the first one in 2018. The writing did not feel as incredible as it felt when I read the first one for the first time. I felt like there was a lot of filler words, like repetition of I don't know. Sure, this can be used for emphasis, but for most part, they did feel unnecessary for me as a reader. However, as the story progressed, as the plot lines started to develop, I really enjoyed this book. And I thought it was a very adequate sequel for the first one. But let's get into my little analysis part. So first up we have Ari as a person. Obviously it's like a day and night difference. Obviously coming out and realizing that he's in love with Dante, it had a tremendous impact on Ari, obviously. But I did not expect it to be this much of an impact. He's no longer talking about how he's miserable, the loneliest boy in the world, and he has nothing in his life, and sometimes he enjoyed being alone, but at times he didn't like it. But in this book he actually makes friends. They're an actual part of the book, when the first book was all about how Ari doesn't really have friends and then he meets Dante. He's much more aware of the world around him. For example, one of the notes that I made in my master's thesis was that there was no discussion of AIDS in the first book, like at all. In this one, it was a major part of the plot, how Ari felt about AIDS, how families around him, people they knew who passed away from AIDS. I think the first one was about giving like a comforting, happy LGBT representation to young readers, but obviously this came out 9 years later than the first one, so I'm sure the author felt like that AIDS needs to be included in this one, since the protagonist is gay. So yeah, personality wise, Ari is more lively. He makes more remarks about his surroundings and they're not negative. He has friends. He's talking more to his family. I'll talk about family later. And he's overall more open and lively. And there's questions about racism, discrimination, LGBT rights that were not included in the first book, at least very prominently. It was just very slightly there, which I do have to say that I did consider whether the author felt like he needed to make Ari that way, because we live in a very different world than when the first one was released in 2012. It's 2022 now. So to have a young protagonist in today's society, it's expected to be educated on certain topics, but this is based on the 80s. So it felt very much like, did the author have to make Ari this way, or did he actually envision Ari in the sequel like this? Or is it a reflection of modern society, even though this is set in the past? I don't know. I hope I'm getting to what I mean. Ari is still fighting, like going into physical fights in the second book, which is really interesting to me because in the first one he felt remorse for doing what he did, that he felt really bad about it after he kind of realized what he had done. He had been violent. But in the second book there are still scenes where Ari goes fight homophobic people, and it's more so like, yeah, I did it. And it's an interesting development from like, I don't know why I did it, to yeah, I did it. And obviously he talks about it with his mom and such, but yeah, it felt more like a that Ari was like, yeah, I fight. What about it? So obviously in this book, Dante and Ari are together now. One of the notes I made in my master's thesis was that before Ari accepted his feelings towards Dante, he thought of love and sexuality as action, like doing something rather than feeling. For example, he kind of forces himself to like this girl Ileana from his class, and it's all about wanting to kiss her. I want to kiss her, and it's mostly to kind of like check the box that he's a teenage boy who has kissed a girl. It's not so much about liking Ileana as a person, even though he talks about like, oh, she's so nice. But in this one, Ari's love for Dante is much more about the feelings and how inspired he is by Dante and how comfortable he feels around Dante. And it's such a difference between how he acted when he was trying to make himself like a girl versus now freely loving Dante. Obviously, they can't be together publicly. Sure, they are out with their friends and out to their friends and family, but they can't hold hands and they have to kind of hide if they want to make out or something. But yet, to see this kind of development was interesting. So family and the lack of relationships with family members was a big part of Ari's life in the first book. And the second book is like almost complete opposite. Ari's father is speaking and sharing his thoughts much more, way more than he ever did during the first book. And that's incredible to see. One article that I used for my thesis discussed how exceptional it is to have a Mexican father accept their gay son right away, especially in the 80s. And in the sequel, it's even more clear and more like being supportive of his son, especially after all these years of him being silent and not sharing about his time in Vietnam and his interests and his life. And it's really beautiful to see because in the first book, Ari would often say that he is like his father, quiet, lonely, silent, carrying his war and demons inside him. But in this one, he's proud to be his son and have similar traits with him. Ari and his mother always had conversations in the first one, maybe more surface level conversations than in this one. I really liked reading those, and I just thought that it was really incredible to see the development of the conversations they had. I don't know if I should mention because it's a huge spoiler. Okay, I will. I will. I don't think that Dad should have died. I feel like that's way too much. It's because like they just got to talk again. I guess that's the irony, that they finally opened up to each other and then he passes away. I thought it was incredibly well written of him passing, but just like as a fan of the book, please no, why? As for the sisters, this was really interesting because the names of the sisters were changed in the sequel. So they were Cecilia and Sylvia, And then they were Emmy and Vera, which I actually remember asking my supervisor for my thesis, like, apparently the sisters' names are changed in the sequel, what do I do? And he just said to keep the names as they are in the first book. Ari's relationship with his sisters was non-existent in the first book. I remember writing in my thesis, like, when Ari was hospitalized after getting hit by a car, it wasn't even written that the twin sisters visited him in the hospital. So it was non-existent. They met up like once during the book, and Ari did talk about them, but it was mostly about the lack of relationship he had with them. But in the second book, they are talking a lot, and there's many conversations about Ari being gay and how they appreciate him and he's important to them, which was a nice surprise to learn after non-existent relationship in the first one. Then we come to Bernardo, the brother who has been imprisoned for murdering 2 people. One of them was a transgender woman. And in this book, huge spoiler alert, Ari actually goes to meet Bernardo. Ari actually tells him that he's gay. And Bernardo did not take it well at all. And instead of being disappointed, Ari was happy that he visited, happy to know that Bernardo ain't shit, basically. But it's so interesting to see this difference of how the first book, Ari spends most of the time admiring the brother, wanting to know more about him, and how he misses him because he was imprisoned when Ari was a small child. But then to have this kind of completely 180 in the second book, which I guess was expected. But I mean, obviously it's sad that somebody doesn't live up to their expectations, but like, yeah, the difference was very, very stark. As I mentioned before, I think the first part was released in 2012 to have this kind of comforting LGBT representation, LGBT story for young readers, like teenager, young adult. I feel like the sequel is more so targeted for the people who read the first part and now get to read the second part 9 years later. I feel like if you were to read the first part now and then instantly read the second part, I feel like it would be a very different reading experience because there has been so much change, but there was no time in between the 2 novels, which I think is an interesting choice. Yeah, as I mentioned before, at first it didn't feel like I was reading about the Ari that I knew from the first book that I spent 6 months with studying him. Then it kind of developed into an interesting story. How would I conclude Ari in this book? He's much more confident. He's proud to be his father's son and his mother's son. He's aware of himself. He's learning about new things, and he's kind of finding his position on several issues, and he's unapologetically in love with Dante, which is a beautiful development from the first book. As I mentioned before, how much of it is it the author's vision for Ari? How much of it is it trying to match the times that we live in? I would love to hear the author's thoughts on this. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that one. Let me know if you've read Aridante, and I'm sorry if I spoiled you. Subscribe for more book videos and videos about culture. Follow me on Instagram at jenskosmos, and for my poetry on Instagram at poetryofjk. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I see you in the next one. Bye!